Cougar Sports Saturday.
Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Ritchie right to the rim, driving score!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here's your host, Mitch Harper, on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
We're live on this Saturday afternoon, February 28th, here in downtown Salt Lake City, here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Big 12 basketball, full slate of action today as it's the penultimate week of the regular season next week. Hard to believe, but the regular season comes to a close 1 week from today. Some scores that have gone final in the Big 12 today. Number 5, Houston takes down Colorado 102-62. Kelvin Sampson's squad was a bit angry about being on a 3-game losing streak, to say the least. Also in action right now, BYU's next opponent after today, the Cincinnati Bearcats. They are up big, 81-49 on Oklahoma State in the second half, 7:57 to go in that one. That's coming up on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. right here on KSL. But the first game for BYU on this East road trip is against the Mountaineers of West Virginia today at 3:30 p.m. right here on KSL. And to get to know the West Virginia Mountaineers, I caught up with Keenan Cummings of WVSports.com.
Mulholland.
Keenan, 3-game skid right now for West Virginia. What's happened in this 3-game stretch for the Mountaineers where it felt like they were right there in the NCAA tournament conversation?
Yeah, it's really been unfortunate for West Virginia. You know, they came back against UCF. They were down 14 in the second half, and they won that game. They're sitting at 16-9. You know, they're right outside the bubble. I think they were in the last 4 out at the point. You had 3 games in a row. You know, you get 2 of those, you're probably right in the picture. But for West Virginia, it's really just been unfortunate. Against Utah, they came out flat. Really did not play well for a large stretch of that game. Battled back. That's something I got to give this team a lot of credit for. They battle every game, battled back, had a chance to win it, missed a couple shots, lost that game. You know, they go on the road at TCU, have a chance to win that game, and just cannot close. They're outscored 12-2 down the stretch, end up losing that game when it looked like they had taken control late. And then Oklahoma State, again, they fall behind 14 points, battle back, send it to overtime. You have all the momentum. You get a couple point-blank shots in overtime. You get the ball right where you want it. They don't go in. Oklahoma State goes down and scores, and that's all she wrote. So it's been frustrating for West Virginia, I think, because of where they were and now where they are. In this league, there's never anything is a dead opportunity, I would say. You know, West Virginia still has a chance. They're 16-12, but the resume is absolutely taken a ding in the last week and change, and it's kind of unfortunate because I really feel at times this team is overachieved with what Ross Hodge has.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on that, Keenan. Again, Keenan Cummings, managing editor at WVSports.com, is my guest. Year 1 for Ross Hodge. How is it maybe ahead of schedule than compared to what expectations were going in, or about where people expected this team to be?
I guess that depends on who you ask. And this is no fault of Ross. And I think most rational people would admit that. But the fan base here has just been frustrated with the basketball program. And it's nobody's fault, you know, just with the coaching turnover, what happened to Bob Huggins. So I think there was a little bit of unreasonable expectations from a portion of the fan base because this is a proud basketball program. You know, they're used to going to the NCAA tournament, haven't been since 2023. You know, that obviously with what happened to Bob Huggins and the fallout there, you know, then Darren DeVries only here for 1 season. You had the interim coach, Josh Eilert, you know, before that. So it's been a lot of just inconsistent and, for lack of a better term, bad basketball. This team is not bad basketball, though. I think that, honestly, if you ask a bunch of people before the season, expectations would have been all over the place. Kind of got inflated a little bit in the fan base, you know, when in that secret scrimmage when they took Maryland a yard. But I try to remind people at the time those things don't really matter. And I think that for a large portion of this season, a lot of fans were pretty pleased with the results. Now, how they finish ultimately will determine year 1, but you know as well as I do anymore with how much turnover there is annually and just how much difference. There's one player back from last year for this team, and he didn't even play the year before. So it's just so much turnover. Pegging down expectations anymore is almost impossible.
It is a challenging thing, and coming up on Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, BYU and West Virginia, two styles that I got to think are really different. West Virginia wants to slow things down. They had success in stretches against Oklahoma State, slowing down an up-tempo team like Oklahoma State. How do you expect West Virginia to try to play BYU in this home matchup in Morgantown?
Yeah, West Virginia has got to play to their pace. I think at times that was an issue against Oklahoma State because they were scoring the ball. It's easy to get in that trap sometimes when you're playing a team with a fast pace. Hey, you score, we score, you score, we score, but that's not West Virginia. Clearly, they weren't able to maintain that. They fell behind. They got to play good transition defense. Obviously, BYU gets out and run, it's going to be tough. And, they got obviously they have to take care of Devonta. He's a problem. They got to find a way to, and I guess you got to pick your poison there a little bit. Are you going to give him extra attention and give guys open shots? Are you going to try to play him and not let the other guys beat you? And are you going to alternate that? Because I think that'll be interesting to see. This is a pretty good defensive team for West Virginia. They've had some lapses here of late, but overall has been really solid, kind of exactly what Ross Hodge preached when West Virginia hired him. They're going to play really good half-court defense. They're going to force you into, when you miss a shot, they're going to try to rebound it, which has been a problem the last 3 games. They haven't gotten as many of those defensive rebounds, but before that, that's what they've done. And they've limited teams, their opportunities. They play the game at a slower pace. They want to play a game in the 60s, not in the 80s, like you saw the other night. So I think that if they're able to do that, they can have success, but that's a tall ask, given what BYU brings to the table.
Who would you say is the best player on this year's West Virginia team?
If you're talking about scoring, it's Honor Huff. He is their scorer, but he gets a lot of attention. Since he's gotten to Big 12 play, he has to work so hard just to get shots. He makes some incredible shots. If you watch some of his film, if you have a chance, any BYU fans out there, it's pretty incredible some of the stuff he can do at his size. But they have a couple players that I think are worth mentioning. Brennan Lorient's a good player. He's a guy that kind of a athletic 4-man. West Virginia plays him at the 4, but he could probably play 3 as well. But athletic, can dunk. Obviously can get to the rim. Chance Moore is the guy that I want to talk about though. Comes off the bench for West Virginia. He's just a spark plug. I just really like the way the guy plays the game. He's got some holes. And he's a shoot free throws better. And, some of those things, but just high energy, high effort, does it on defense, rebounds the ball. And when he gets in transition, the guy's a problem.
Yeah, 14 points and 10 rebounds in the last outing against Oklahoma State. So that's a good pull there. This will be an interesting game. I saw in the secondary ticket market that there's pretty expensive tickets. Is this going to be a really good crowd at the Coliseum? I saw it's also striped the Coliseum. Are you expecting a good turnout for this game?
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be a sellout. So I think that it should be a lively crowd. People are hungry, I guess I should say, is the best word for West Virginia to put together, because this team had played really, really well at home until down the stretch. And they lost to Baylor, lost to Utah at home. So they had been undefeated before that loss to Baylor. So I think that finding a way to kind of get some momentum here, because for West Virginia, the pathway is pretty clear at this point. You have no chance at the NCAA tournament if you don't find a way to win out in the regular season, unless you're able to, run the gauntlet in the Big 12. But that's more of an ask than most people are going to be able to deliver. So you got to win these 3 games, and I think that everybody understands that. Ross Hodge is very one game at a time type deal. He's been like that since day one. Doesn't really look big picture, doesn't talk tournament, that type of things. But for fans, that's all they're thinking about at this stage. So I expect it to be a very lively, very, very exciting atmosphere inside Hope Coliseum.
And what would you say, Keenan, along with the pace of the game, would be an extra key for West Virginia in this matchup?
I think they got to rebound the ball. It's been a problem of late. Really, it hadn't. but it has. I think a good start would go a long way. That had plagued this team for a lot of their early season issues. Get off to really bad starts. Then of late, it's been closing. So I think the inconsistency at this stage is the biggest issue with this team because, you're 28 games into the season and you're still having different issues crop up, out of some of the same guys, out of different guys. And if West Virginia can find some consistency, kind of play off that home crowd and get the game at their pace, limit BYU to one shot, keep them out of transition, I think that they can have success. But again, you just heard me. I listed off a pretty lengthy list there, but this team has proven that they can play well. And they've got on the road, like I said, they beat UCF on the road. They beat Kansas at home. They're able to string together good basketball. It's just about being able to do it consistently.
He's Keenan Cummings, managing editor for WVSports.com, part of the On3 network. Check out his coverage this weekend for BYU and West Virginia. Always appreciate the time, Keenan, and looking forward to your coverage and looking forward to seeing how West Virginia finishes in this stretch run.
Should be a fun one.
That's Keenan Cummings here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Appreciate the time with Keenan. We're taking a break. On the other side, get some more BYU and West Virginia breakdown right here on Cougar Sports Saturday.